All right, let's dive into a question that seems, almost childishly simple. Why are we nice to each other? But when you start looking at it through the cold, hard lens of evolution, our ability to cooperate suddenly becomes this deep, fascinating puzzle. And it's a puzzle that might just force us to completely rethink what human nature even means.
You've heard it a million times, right? Survival of the fittest. Evolution gets painted as this brutal dog-eat-dog competition. So, if that's the whole picture, where does kindness fit in? Where does altruism come from? I mean, why would any creature, especially us, do something that helps someone else, particularly if it costs us something? It feels like it goes against the entire rule book. And that, right there, is what we call evolution's cooperation puzzle. The huge challenge for biologists and philosophers is figuring out how to make these two things fit together. How can the exact same process that drives fierce competition also produce selfless cooperation? How can both of these be winning strategies in the struggle for life?
I mean, just think about it from a gene's point of view. Natural selection is all about passing on your own genes to the next generation. So any act of pure self-sacrifice, that should be an evolutionary dead end. Logically, those genes should have been wiped out ages ago. And yet, cooperation isn't just some weird little exception, it's everywhere. That's the core conundrum we have to figure out.
So, how do you even begin to solve a puzzle this big? Well, what scientists are trying to do is nothing short of breathtakingly ambitious. They're trying to build a universal theory of teamwork to find the basic, fundamental laws that explain exactly when and why cooperation shows up in any species.
And this is a huge idea. We're not talking about just observing animals and taking notes. We're talking about finding something more like a law of physics. A general theory of cooperation would be like a mathematical formula for teamwork, a set of abstract rules that work everywhere, from the tiny cells in your body working together to an ant colony, all the way up to humans building a global society. It's all about finding those universal conditions that make teamwork a winning move.
Now, to build that universal theory, scientists realized they had to make a really important distinction first. It turns out not all cooperation is created equal. You have to separate the automatic, almost robotic kind of teamwork from the messy, complicated, psychological kind that we humans know so well. And understanding this split is absolutely key.
And here you can really see the two sides of the coin. Over on one side, you have unthinking cooperation. This stuff is automatic, it's programmed by genes and chemicals. But then, on the other side, you've got our brand of cooperation, and it is a completely different beast. It's a complicated mix of trust, beliefs, deliberate choices, and stuff we learn from each other. It's flexible, it's adaptable, it's not a fixed program at all.
So this is what that unthinking cooperation looks like in the real world. The cells in your liver don't decide to work together, they're just programmed to. An ant isn't thinking about the greater good of the colony, it's just following chemical signals, running on pure instinct. The end result is amazing, yeah, a super complex society, but it's all running on autopilot.
Okay, now contrast that with our world. Trusting a friend with a secret, deciding to follow traffic laws so we don't all crash, building a company from the ground up. None of that is hardwired in our genes. It all depends on stuff happening inside our heads, psychological states like trust and belief and shared goals. These are conscious choices we make.
And this brings us right to the heart of it all. Once you see these two very different kinds of cooperation, you have to ask a pretty blunt question. Are we humans just a fancier, more complicated version of an ant colony? Or is there something fundamentally different going on with us?
This is where things get really deep, philosophically. What's at stake here is how we understand ourselves. Is our incredibly complex social world just a more advanced version of what a slime mold does? Is it just a difference in degree? Or has our psychology and our culture created something totally new, a different phenomenon altogether, a difference in kind? The way you answer that changes everything. You know, when you start wrestling with that question, you run headfirst into one of the oldest, biggest ideas in all of philosophy, the very concept of human nature. And what's so cool is that the evolutionary perspective doesn't just offer a new answer to an old question. It actually forces us to throw the old question out and ask a completely new one. Just look at this quote from the source material. It's so powerful. It's that little phrase at the end, if such a thing exists at all. Whoa. That's not just a small comment. That's like a philosophical bomb being dropped. The evolutionary view doesn't just want to redefine human nature. It makes you question if a fixed, timeless human nature is even a real thing to begin with. For pretty much all of history, the big philosophical quest was to find the blueprint for a human being.
The old view just assumed there was some kind of static, unchanging list of features that define what it meant to be human. For all people, everywhere, for all time.
But the evolutionary view comes along and just dissolves that entire question. It completely reframes the project. We stop asking, what is our timeless essence? And we start asking, how did the weird, messy, totally unique history of our species shape the cluster of behaviors and tendencies we see today? The question itself shifts from a static, what, to a dynamic, how.
And really, this whole new perspective comes from a total change in how we even define the word species. A species isn't some perfect, static type defined by a checklist. It's a lineage. It's a branch on the ever-growing tree of life, constantly being shaped by history and pure chance. And once you really accept that, the old-school idea of a fixed human nature just kind of falls apart.
So, this is the new picture. Human nature isn't some rigid blueprint. It's more like a dynamic cluster of traits and possibilities, all shaped by our one-of-a-kind history as these brainy, social primates. And maybe the most important part, it's still changing. It's open to variation, and it will continue to evolve. It's not a finished product. It's a story that's still being written.
And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-blowing thought. If our nature isn't set in stone, if it really is an evolving story, well, that means the next chapter hasn't been written yet. So the ultimate question becomes, what are we going to write?